and they'll kind of go in further in depth in those questions that you were probing there. And if anybody is interested in that kind of intellectual side of discovering Christ, I think that would definitely build on what you've been talking about today, Jason. So thank you so much for coming on. It was brilliant.
Yeah, thanks a million. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to our next speaker, Gustavo. It's a testimony from Gustavo up in Belfast. Gustavo is married and has 2 children. He's originally from Brazil and he's lived in Belfast over the last 6 years. He joined the Legion of Mary about 4 years ago, and he's the secretary of Our Lady Queen of Peace Presidium in Belfast. Gustavo, I would attempt your surname, but I think I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, so I'll let you take over from here.
We had tried to practice it earlier, but we're not sure how well we did.
Sure, no problem. It's just like lasagna is Munhon.
Okay,
yeah, that's not no. We're not far off, just as though we didn't attempt it. Fire away there, Gustavo.
Hello there, everyone. So, just not going to waste time on me because the time is too short. 10 minutes, and I just want to try to make a short version of everything. And basically, I wasn't raised as a Catholic, first of all, and when I was 15, I had a wonderful meeting with Christ, Jesus. And when I was 7 years old, I was, in a sense, offered to the devil. I don't know if you know about this. We call this candomblé in Brazil. But I was brought to this place. It's a sort of a paganism, false gods and stuff. They offered me to the devil there. When I was 15, I was in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and Jesus touched me and broke everything, related to the devil there. And I lived for 9 years in Brazil, a wonderful life, like pretty much all of us, like a Catholic. You try to do things for God. You try to, do the will of God, being young, like many of us here, a young person. And just before moving to Belfast, around 6 years and a half, 6 years ago, I participated in a meeting. It's a sort of a interior healing meeting, and I was told by someone who prayed for me that I was going to live with my dad. And I thought, this is impossible, whatever. But I eventually came to live with my dad in Belfast. So that's how I came here. And I lived with my dad for 9 months. After that, I went to live sort of by myself. I was 25 by the time, and I found myself, I was completely lost because I haven't ever lived without, close family and friends and stuff. And this is one of the things that struck me because I was working by the time, I actually worked in Robinson's, the bar in Belfast here. I don't know, many of you know that, this bar in Queen's Victoria Street there. But anyway, I realized that for you to be friends with local people here, you need to sort of learn and understand the culture and how they live. And one of the things I spotted is people here drink a lot. So to be friends with people, I started to drink what I haven't done in myself until I was 25. So that is the sort of life I started. But just before that, let me just tell you this. There is a phrase from Saint Teresa of Avila. She says, those who not pray earlier or later becomes an animal. So I started to drink and I stopped to pray. So that's what my life went through, a dark path, all wrong ways. And when I realized my life was worthless, I was thinking, because coming from my background, when I was 13, I thought about committing suicide because I thought, people are so happy. When you look at people out there, and especially nowadays, you look at people in social media, they seem to be so happy and they have a beautiful life and they have, wonderful things happening. And when I looked to myself, I was thinking my life is worthless. Why do I live? all the sort of questions when I was 13. I know many of us maybe could have gone through that path as well. But anyway, when I was living this life, drinking and trying to find girls and everything, I went to a party one day in Lavery, that is a bar, another pub here in Belfast. And in that night, I was so annoyed and thinking, what life am I living? Maybe some of us could be asking that. I don't know, the sort of life you could be living today. But I asked myself that, and in a maybe 30 seconds prayer, was a while since I haven't prayed, haven't went to church or anything. But I prayed and said, God, show me, show me something. I don't want to live in this darkness. I don't want to stay living in this sort of life. And in that night, the signal, or what God showed me, was what sin makes to people. And what I see is, in that night, I threw up 3 times. I remember, and that was something that was like a shock in my life. And I said, wow, what am I doing? When you wake up. And after that, I told myself, I'm going to get back to the church. And God is great. One of the things that happened in this while is that one day I was praying and I was so irritated and I was crying out, and I told God, why did you took me out from Brazil to bring me to a place where I don't have friends, where I'm lonely, where I live this worthless life? And one day I was praying this, and then a couple of months after, I was struggling, trying to stop drinking, stop this wrong life with, the girls, everything. And I was participating pretty much like most of us here in a Catholic conference of the Legion of Mary around 4 years ago. And for the first time in maybe 2 years, I felt the presence of God. And it was like, I felt, this is the image I remember, it was like I was in a desert and there was water coming from the desert, like when Moses hit that rock. And it's the same way when Christ was pierced, blood and water flowed, and God made wonderful things in my life in that day, in that conference. And after that, I went to confession. Many of us maybe could know here Father Andrew Black. I made my confession to him. And when he gave me the absolution, when he was with his hands like that, I felt, and I had a vision like he was with his hands like suck and taking out of me all the darkness, all the, bad stuff that was in my soul. And I felt clean, and I had hope. And that is one of the things that touched me deeply. And I was only in this conference because someone invited me. And it's written in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 6, verse 14. A loyal friend is a powerful defense. Whoever finds one has indeed found a treasure. And when I prayed, asking God why he brought me from Brazil to Belfast, to leave me alone without friends, he answered my prayer as well, because one day I was in the church and someone came. He couldn't speak much English, but the priest brought him to me, because I learned English here in Belfast, and it seems like I can speak, but it's not that I am good. It's just because I talk like local people. And he came to me, and he was very friendly. And he got me my number, and he thought I was a great Brazilian who was evangelizing Belfast. I was completely lost in the city, with all sin and stuff. But he, over time, became my friend, and he invited me to the Legion of Mary. And today, I am a secretary of the Legion of Mary. I am, married, very happy married with 2 children. And the Almighty made wonders, wonderful things in my life. And I can say because of Our Lady. And I can say because of the Catholic Church. And this person is watching here, Felipe, is the one who invited me. And I am just grateful for everything that God did in my life. And just to finish off, I want to finish with one praise from St. Thomas Aquinas that my son is named after him. He said, "Who found God in this life found everything he needed." Amen.
Gustavo, I don't think there's a dry eye in the audience, including my own. I will admit, my goodness,
Powerful.
very powerful, very powerful. And I think the biggest thing that jumped out at me is the parable of the prodigal son, and how God is just always waiting for us, just waiting for us to come back. And you're just a true example of that prodigal son, who lived a life of misery, of sin, as we all do, but who came back to Christ. And it really struck me that that's what we're all searching for, is that love of Christ. And if we take that leap of faith and just open our heart to that, well, we realize that that's exactly what we're searching for. And it's just so beautiful to hear. Well, firstly, your Belfast accent.
Yeah.
You're right at home up there in Belfast. But to hear as well, that you're now happily married with 2 children. We saw one of them yesterday on our
She's gorgeous.
our little call, yes. But thank you so much. And I know you're certainly going to touch hearts on this call. And you also have a blog, isn't it? You have a blog that we'd like to give a shout out to. It's a Catholic in Belfast. Have I got that correct?
Exactly, yeah. So since the testimony is too long, if people want to read about it, I wrote a testimony from the fact that one day I was going to be aborted. And I wrote another one from the one when I was 13 that I was going to commit suicide. So maybe that can help some people as well. Just look for Catholic in Belfast blogspot.com.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Gustavo.